So it's really a myth that our aura colors are just about our personality or that it's a mood ring and that it's our emotions. It's so much more complex. It's really about how you approach life, which then when we go into manifestation, it's like how you're actually creating what it is that you're experiencing.
Manifesting, that's the word they want to hear. 节目开始之前，先让9力用2分钟的时间感谢支持本集无限力的品牌 Saily 力宝们应该有发现9力有颗浪子心，每隔一段时间我就一定要出国进修，转换一下城市，充电。但一直以来出国最让我头痛的不是收拾行李，而是处理网路。你还记得以前一下飞机就要在那边找针，然后在那边插卡，还要收那张超级无敌容易搞丢的 SIM card 啊！万一设定半天没反应，那种焦虑感真的是会爆棚，心情糟透呢。后来我找到了一个超完美的解法，就是 Saily 它的用法很直觉，出发前先下载好 App， 在 App 里面设定好，飞机一落地的那一刻，网路就接好了。不用找针，不用找柜台，只要好好享受异地的空气跟当下的快乐就搞啊。Saily 支援全球200多个国家，对于经常在不同地方移动的我真的很方便。最棒的是在 App 里面还可以看流量剩多少，完全不用担心留言回到一半或者是发文发到一半突然断线。加上它有基本的网络防护，在国外用起来也比较安心。而且 Saily 还提供装置不相容可以全额退款的服务，所以用起来完全无风险。如果丽最近刚好有要出国的话，想要告别换卡的焦虑，9力这次有帮大家争取到优惠哦。现在前往 saily.com/JOLIE， 或在结账时输入我的专属优惠码 JOLIE，就能直接领取 Saily 流量方案的独家15%优惠，跟30天未开通的退款保证。有兴趣的力，赶快去资讯栏看看吧。欢迎来到无限力，我是9力，今天要来跟大家分享众所期待也有小众质疑的一个 topic， which is 9力的新品牌 Colorfaura 光环摄影体验。为了帮大家更专业的解惑，9力今天邀请到了 Colorfaura 其中一个合伙人 Eileen Lee who has been doing this for over 10 years 来跟我们分享他经营 Aura Photography for 10 years 的经验分享以及心得，还有里面的知识，希望可以让大家更加了解这个体验背后的原理，以及我们可以怎么理解自己的光环照。再来就是有光环照之后你可以带走的自我觉察，以及对齐自己灵魂的行动。让我们来一起欢迎 Eileen Lee. Thank you so much, Eileen, for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So to start, could you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Eileen Lee, or 中文李依玲, and I have been practicing aura photography for almost 10 years now. I live in the United States, of course, Detroit, Michigan, but 我在台湾长大。所以我会讲一点国语。
I didn't know that did you grew up in Taiwan for years?
Just until I was 3 years old.
That doesn't count as 长大啦。
哎呦，真的
so
I think it counts, right? A little bit.
长大到3岁 baby 3 though.
对对。
No, I love your Chinese. 你的中文超可爱。
哎呀，谢谢。
So tell us a little more about or like how long you have been doing aura photography and what is your aura colors. Share a little bit more about that.
So I have been practicing aura photography for almost 10 years now. Last year, I actually wrote a book, which is called The Ultimate Guide to Auras. And it's really a culmination of all the research I've been doing for the last, 9, almost 10 years with my Aura camera and the tens and thousands of clients that I photographed throughout the United States. And last year, actually, also in Germany, and I also was in Kyoto, Japan. So it was the first year I kind of took it international. I also did photograph my family in Taiwan, I think in 2023 or 2024. I can't remember. I have to look. But my aura usually is very much in the blue range. So when I'm in alignment, this is what I look like. And I'm very consistently, especially this last year or two, this color.
Was it not as consistent before?
No, I think for, especially in the beginning, when I started my practice and my business, it was fluctuating all the time. I think I've had blues occasionally, but not, I think, until really in the last couple of years, where I think I really hit like a good flow. I think stepped into my purpose, alignment, living with more intention, which we'll get into a little bit later. That all does resonate with the color blue. So yeah, this is my aura. Just like I know how yours is, yours is pretty consistent too.
I know, which I think it's so boring. And then whenever I heard your explanation, it's like, that makes so much sense, which we'll get into later. So what do you hope people will take away after listening to this episode?
Well, I know aura photography is, relatively new to Taiwan. So I'm really hoping that people who are tuning in will have a better understanding of what this process is about, how the technology works, and also how being photographed, or understanding what your aura colors are, and even how it potentially could change, could help you in your life and this idea of co-creating or manifesting.
Manifesting, that's the word they want to hear. So I know this is not like on the questions, but a lot of people are asking us that, like, how often should one take an aura photo? How often do you take your own photo?
So with mine, I take it fairly often right now, just when I'm testing the camera, when I do a lot of events. So I do take it more recently, like almost every couple weeks, which then I see it as consistent like this. Occasionally, there will be one that is a little bit rainbow, and I've noticed that's when things are a little chaotic and it's just in the moment when something is like stressful, but then it goes back to this. But previous to the last year or so, I would just take it about once a month.
Okay. That's a good amount.
But I think for other people, especially like my clients, I always tell them that I am not the one who is to dictate or tell them how often to do it, because everybody, sort of moves through life in their own pace or own timeline. So similar to, getting like your tarot cards read, right? You don't have to do it every day or once a week. Like yourself, you could pull tarot, but to actually have someone read it for you, you kind of figure that out when you feel like it's time to get a reading. So I think it's the same with aura photography. When you feel like something has shifted in your life, that could be a good time. So, maybe it is once a month. Maybe it's every 3 months. Maybe it's once a year. I have clients who, they come in different ranges.
Oh, I love that. I will definitely share that with our clients. And so the most important question, here's the golden question. What's an aura photography and what is aura?
Yeah. So our aura is our electromagnetic energy. Some people think about it as our spirit, or I know I've been hearing you describe it as 说你的亮，对不对？
光环.
光环. Oh, okay. But, it's unseen, but the colors really dictate what it is that we experience in our lives, right? And aura photography is basically using a specialized camera that's able to capture this light, this energy, this spirit, that comes from within us, but that really is what programs or creates what we experience. To me, it's also part of how we manifest in life, right? And by understanding those colors, we can be better equipped with like how we are manifesting, so to speak. And, the camera basically was invented first back, or the technology in the late 70s. The first models came out in the early 80s. I talk about all of this in my book. And over the years, there's been different generations of these cameras, almost like you think about different generations of iPhones, right? So I actually am a little bit weird. I have almost every generation of this camera, including like the computer ones. because I always wanted to really understand this at the core and also experiment and see if there's any difference between the different generations of cameras.
Right. What is the difference? Because we have been getting a lot of doubts and questions. People were like, oh, we had this camera like 20 years ago. And I was like, it's probably not the same camera that we have right now, 6,000, right?
Right. So the first version, I have all of them, is called the Oricam 3000. The 3000 then became the Oricam 6000. And what I've noticed is like the big difference is the coloration of the photos. In the 3000 and also some of the early models of the 6000, the colors will look a little bit more pastel. And I equate that to the lights that are inside because, of course, you know, how these cameras work, it is creating your aura because no camera can capture what the naked eye cannot see, right? But how it's working is, you know, I guess maybe to jump forward a little bit is the hand sensors that you put your hands on are made of silver. And then the little dots that you see on it are reading the meridian points of your hands, which I love because, you know, especially in Taiwan, people understand things like acupuncture, right? So those little dots are literally reading the meridian points of our hands, which we know through Chinese medicine that meridians map out the energetic body. And that's what things like acupuncture is treating, is like our energy through those channels. And so then the camera is literally reading our energy as a vibration. It's using a low frequency radio signal, and then it's sending all the information it's reading literally to the box part of the camera. And the camera has an algorithm because the inventor was an electrical engineer into the corresponding colors because every color exists at a certain frequency. So it's picking up like red is this frequency. So we know then maybe your aura is red, or green, you know, yellow, and so forth. And anyway, so then how it's picking it up is then so the camera basically, it takes a photo of you first, and then it's reading the aura. And that's why it's a double exposure where it's taking, you know, it's basically two pictures in one. And so the second part is where the difference between the cameras are because, you know, over the years, I think they had different access to different lighting components or the color, you know, lights to create the aura colors. And the earlier ones were more pastel, and these later ones now are more primary colors. This older camera also is called a 6000, but these new 6000s, the difference is the film type. So all the new cameras use Instax film, which you'll notice is just a different type of film. And the original cameras, the actual vintage ones, which I use in my practice Aura, is the original peel apart film, which I think that studio in Taiwan, you said, is it 997?
Yes, 997.
Yeah, they use
that as well.
Yeah, for their very special portraits. So I think, you know, I always say with the original camera, it's very special because it is on that like old school film.
Yeah, I wish they still make that. It's so cool. Such an experience. Okay. Would you say that aura photography is more about measuring something or helping people gain more awareness about themselves?
Because quantifiable, scientific level, it is literally measuring which chakras are activated. And then to the second point, it's helping us understand what is going on within ourselves. So, you know, when I also think about the aura in a very modern day way, I've been telling clients these days, when you think about your aura, you want to think about it as your own personal algorithm. And of course, when we think about algorithms, we think about things like technology or, you know, social media or even just the internet. And in those instances where we place our focus, you know, the content that we engage with, that is literally then fed back to us, right? So your aura colors that are showing up in your photo is literally your own feedback system. And I think about every color as an area or a category of focus in life. So then by understanding the chakras and what the colors mean, you can understand where you're placing your focus, and more importantly, like how you're moving through your life, right? So it's really a myth that our aura colors are just about our personality, or that it's a mood ring and that it's our emotions. It's so much more complex. It's really about like how you approach life, which then when we go into manifestation, it's like how you're actually creating what it is that you're experiencing, you know?
It's literally manifestation.
Yeah. So you can think about how you either go about manifestation or, you know, like where and what aspect or what process of manifestation are you? And I talk about this in the book too, where when we manifest, there's two different currents, right? So I've come across a lot of clients who think that the cooler colors, the upper chakras, which are the spiritual chakras, somehow are better than the lower chakras, like the warm colors, which are like the earthly chakras. But to me, there's no hierarchy, because when we go downwards in the chakras, that's when we're actually like manifesting, so to speak, versus when we go upwards in the chakras, we're liberating our energy. But, you know, some people are better at manifesting in certain areas. Like, it doesn't mean like when you're always in the blues, you're not manifesting. You just maybe approach manifesting in a different way than down here. But some people do usually will go through the cycle to actually manifest. So it just depends.
Oh my God, I'm like gaining so much wisdom right now. I think my head is like, boom, boom, boom. A lot of universe is going on.
And, you know, this, to me, this is still an experiment. This is still like a working theory of mine, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's with anything, like even science books out there, like some of these things, like scientists are like discovering new things, which then kind of negate other things that were out there, you know? So we're really just dealing with this idea of spirituality, which is also then a little bit harder to quantify. That's what this practice over the last 10 years has been, is for me to figure out like, okay, so this is what it's supposed to be, but is it true? And I was discovering things like, you know, yellow supposedly is about happiness. But through my research, and I talked about this in the book too, and we've talked about this, it's really only that 2% of the time. You know, yellow, for example, has so much nuance and it deals with so many other things.
Right. So my aura is always in the red, right? My aura is so red all the time. People might think lower chakras are more of a materialist, but I don't think I'm that.
With the red, though, you know, it does represent like the material world. But to me, it just represents that you are somebody who exists and moves through life in a red way, which I guess we can just jump into color right now, at least with red, where, you know, I think in certain areas of your life, you are somebody who is not afraid to take action on things. And knowing you now pretty well, I think you tend to move pretty fast. You're always like, what's next? I need to create this, right? And red is all about that. It's about creating and moving things forward. But then, you know, I also have been talking to a lot of clients recently about how every color will show up, whether you need more of it or whether you already integrate it. And so that also exists in individuals who naturally move through life red way, right? So you occupy two ends of a spectrum, this idea of yin and yang, or light and shadow, or duality. So, you know, you are very much a go-getter and fearless in certain areas of your life, but then maybe in other areas of your life, like your personal life, maybe is where you crave security and, you know, familiarity, and you wouldn't want, for example, to like be moving all the time, right? Or to have big changes in some of like your friendships or significant relationships. But I think, you know, things like your career is where you're always like constantly like moving forward.
But how can we tell if this person is on the more balanced side or unbalanced side?
So what I just described is only for people who are red all the time, versus sometimes the red, for example, sometimes I'll be red, right?
Right.
But that's not how I naturally exist. And that is usually during seasons where I'm either resisting change or I'm in the process of like creating some sort of change, and I'm having to like do it at a fast pace. And I can do it, but I know for myself when I'm in that red energy too long, because I naturally exist in the blues, I can get very irritated or I can get very exhausted easily.
Oh, could you explain, other than red, what different colors represent and how people can begin to interpret them when they get their aura photo?
It's just so complex, but I can go into, I guess, more general meanings, right? So we talked about red. Red is the root chakra. It deals with the material world. It usually deals with change and either taking action or not taking action, but needing to. And then we go to orange. Orange is the sacral chakra, and that deals with our emotional body. But usually we use that energy to motivate ourselves, to be creative with our problem solving, to be flexible. So then you go to yellow, and that is the solar plexus chakra. That is about our personal power. So it has to deal with things like our identity, what we believe in, structure, decisions. It has to do with things like, this sounds strange. It usually comes up during seasons where there are maybe conflicts happening, whether that's within ourselves or other people. And I've noticed that is usually more so when we see yellow with a little bit of that magenta color. And magenta is not a aura color, but since we're getting next to the heart chakra, is sort of talked about as two different colors, usually like pink and green. But pink to me is not a color because within physics and colors of light, it's magenta. And so that also, to me, magenta is in between indigo, blue, the third eye chakra, and then red. And so anyway, so yellow will show up, I've noticed, with magenta because magenta is about being authentic. It's about being truly more childlike authentic, not needing other one to validate you. And I notice those colors usually will work in tandem because one will trigger the other. In terms of yellow, sometimes it's you're in a situation that isn't serving you anymore, which then, something is taking your power away and you're like, okay, how do I regain control? Or do I need to set boundaries? Or do I need to restructure something in my life so that it can work out? And then the magenta comes because you're like, oh, I need to start putting myself first, right? Or sometimes magenta comes first. And I'm talking about in different areas of the photo, magenta will come first because you're like, oh, I need to start putting myself first. And then you're like, oh, how do I do that? Because I need to then start stepping into my power with the yellow. And like I said, kind of what I said before, either restructure, set boundaries, change what I believe, things of that nature. So then as we go to green, green is also then the secondary color, or actually the main color of the heart chakra. And that usually I've noticed will be in your aura during a time of growth. So when you think about, growth, that only happens in your life when you, number one, are out of your comfort zone. Number two, usually dealing with a situation that you've never had to deal with before, whether that's, maybe starting your own business for the first time. For some other people, it's like, I just had a baby. I don't know how to be a parent. So it's anything where it is a new beginning, but it's not just any kind of a change. It's sort of a change or a new beginning that forces you to then evolve within yourself and not necessarily just physical reality. Okay, so then next is the throat chakra, which is the color blue, which is more of a lighter blue because, there's a darker indigo blue. And this is about how we communicate and how we express ourselves. And, it can be a verbal thing, which relates to this idea of honesty and truth. But, I've noticed a lot of the times it really isn't just about speaking our truth. It really is about embodying it and living it in some sort of a way, right? Which I think now for me, that's why my blue is so consistent because I am actually living that or doing my best to do that.
Yes.
And I think about that as end of day, how do you spend your time? And to me, that's at more of a soul, human level, not an ego level where you're doing something to benefit like others or I mean yourself, like an ego way. I've noticed that the blue will sometimes come up when people feel aligned in their purpose and their expression, or it can be also when they're questioning it, right? Because of the idea of like opposites. Sometimes when people are changing careers, or recently I saw it with a woman who just retired and now is trying to figure out like, what do I do with my time? I don't know. I'm not working anymore, you know? So yeah, it can be, there's just so many scenarios. It's hard to just pinpoint like this means only this because there's such a range. Okay, so then next is the darker indigo blue. That is the third eye. And to me, that is really about our intuition. And so our intuition is really about using our feelings to help guide us. The opposite of logic or having things, make sense in a very familiar way. So that tends to be, an indigo sometimes is how naturally people move through life, but for other people, it's a period of time. So when it's a period of time, it is usually a season or a period of time where you have to surrender, you have to let go of control, you don't know how life is going to move forward, either with your timing of things or like the outcome. Which I saw started having a little bit of indigo. I remember when a lot of this was, starting and things were kind of in flux, which makes sense now, right? Because you're like, I don't know when this is going to happen, but I've set it into motion and there's nothing I can do. And you have to trust the process.
I was just about to ask because I have noticed a lot of people have this like indigo on the very, very top. It's almost like an edge, a little bit of that. So does that mean that the aura is kind of reminding us to surrender?
Can I see the rest of the photo? Well, with mine, it's not just on the edge. When it's all blues, it's almost like a Photoshop file. There's a whole layer of indigo behind all these other colors. But if we look at your photos where it's like red on the bottom and then indigo on top, that is where it's a little bit just more on the edge.
The indigo is like on the very, very top.
But it's actually still underneath all those other colors, except for the green and the yellow. It's like a background color.
Oh, I see that. I'm just now seeing this.
It's in between too. 对啊.
Okay.
So it's like, it's layers, but I've seen the ones where you have that on top, but then everything else is warm colors. And I think that for you, it's like you're in your normal state, but because up here is the current, you then are in a period where everything is kind of out of your control and you're just trying to figure out like, okay, I just have to like let it go.
Oh, I see. Now we go to indigo and violet.
So violet purple, crown chakra is about infinite possibility. So, inspiration, our dreams, new ideas, our visions. I like to use the example of, when we create a vision board. To me, that's a very violet purple thing to do, right? So when you have that in your aura, you're basically tapping into that aspect of yourself.
Right.
So white is, kind of all the colors, right? So white is our connection to God, to the universe, to our ancestors, to our spirit guides, whatever you want to call it. And to me, it shows up just when we are connecting to that energy. So it doesn't mean it's one specific thing. And we usually connect to that energy when we either feel lost, when we're seeking guidance, when we feel confused, or when we feel overwhelmed.
So we have noticed that if they're really tired, or let's say if they just got done a sound healing session, people tend to have more white for some reason. Does that mean that, I'm just saying it, there's spirit guide or angels are with them? Can I say that?
Well, I mean, that is our connection to like that energy, right? And so when we are kind of in a reset mode or trying to bring that energy down to us, that's why it's showing up. So that's why I say there's such a range. It can mean anything from literally trying to connect to that energy because you're looking for answers, when we feel overwhelmed, that energy sometimes comes in to reset us. But then also when you're meditating, you're still connecting to that energy, right?
Right.
I've noticed when it's closer to you and it's like very, very, almost like a neon color, that is usually when it's either the overwhelm or you've just done something where you're resetting and trying to, that energy is kind of helping kind of almost like reset or cleanse your energy a little bit. But that's also very opposite. So it's not just one thing.
Right. We've done some experiments. So we wonder, because a lot of people would come in, and then right now I'm sitting at the studio as well. People get really, really excited seeing me. And I know that it might change their aura colors right away because there's this one client who is so cute. She saw me and she cried right away and she couldn't stop bawling her eyes out. And I was like, don't cry. It will change your aura colors. And I don't know if it's true, but I want to confirm with you because there was this one time that I felt I was crying and then I had a lot of emotions. And then for the first time, I was so orange. Like the bottom colors are orange. And then that girl, she also had some orange or a lot of orange in her as well. So can I say that if they have a lot of emotions at the time, orange will show up?
It can, because that is one meaning of orange, right? Like orange can be as simple as you're very emotionally invested in what's happening. Because it is literally the emotional body. But it can also, I know for your instance, what was going on during that time. And I think, there's other layers to yours. And it's hard to say for her because then I would have had a conversation about what was going on in her life, aside from, just that moment, because sometimes it can change in a moment. But that's not accurate because whatever it was before is. So I think that's interesting. Maybe it's best if you're not there.
I might just have to wear a mask because right now I'm the only receptionist. Yeah, we're still trying to look for people because it's so funny. People mood shift so fast, and I'm like, I need to get out of here.
But I mean, I'm sure you've done experiments where it doesn't change that quickly, even with the emotions.
That's right, which is something that I thought was so interesting because I wonder. There was this one time where I did an experiment. I don't know if I shared it with you. I was in just a normal state, and then I had my normal red and some rainbow colors because I was going through a lot of things at the time. And then that was like a month ago. Everybody gets so excited or very intrigued when they see how different the aura was. Within 40 minutes, I was in a depressed mode. And then I wanted to take my aura photo, and it changed into like blue, green, which I've never, ever seen in my aura.
We talked about this. So it doesn't mean depression, but I think we talked about how at that point you felt like you weren't in control of what was going on.
Right.
Right? I think maybe maybe things weren't going exactly as you planned. And you were just like, okay, I guess I give up. Do you feel like that was your mindset?
I was giving up.
So like I said, that's why like in this, I mean, this is me naturally, but for you, it's like you were then in a state where you were literally forced to just surrender. You're like, I just have to trust that like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Like there's nothing I can do, which makes so much sense. You were feeling depressed because that is the opposite of how you naturally are and how you naturally are when you're thriving. Versus for me to be in the reds like too long, I would then start feeling irritated and depressed.
Right. That's a question that we get a lot from clients, whether or not their aura is just like this forever, or does it change over the time? So through our conversation, I can confirm that our aura is going to change. It's just like your algorithm. It's going to change because of your focus.
Right. But there's no set timeline. Because there are people, I have photographed clients, over the last 9, almost 10 years, and all 20 photos, all 30 photos are almost exactly the same.
Are they like very consistent?
Yeah, almost like, I'm thinking specifically of my client, Charlie, who is now my friend. I talk about him a lot.
Oh.
He's always red, but he had red with some yellow a couple times. And this is when I really started learning about yellow. And I was like, Charlie, like, what's going on? And he's like, well, I had a situation with a client where I had to fire them, and I hate conflict. And I was like, oh, I started realizing, these different ways of thinking about yellow, where this idea then of, when you believe in something and then somebody else believes in something and it's like this, that's also yellow, which is the very opposite of being happy, because he was not happy. He was like, I don't want to do this, that. It really was awful. He felt conflicted. But yeah, he tends to be always in the warm colors. And it's funny, his wife, Amber, she's always in blues and purples and magentas. And then when they come together, it always looks like ambers.
Because she has more
influence. Yeah.
Influence on Charlie.
And I think in a good way, Yeah, and I think in a good way. She can bring him out of like being so focused on his work and all this other stuff.
I love that. So talking about always red, always blue, I know that a lot of people wanted to ask whether or not it can capture our soul color or base color.
So you're not going to know what your soul colors are unless you see a psychic.
Oh.
So,
but you do know your soul color.
I know mine because I've had psychics tell me what my soul colors are.
What? I didn't know that. I thought because you mentioned how you took pictures throughout the years and then you were in alignment and then you noticed that it's always in the blue or green.
And I think that can be one way to go about it, but I think it's helpful, obviously a psychic that you trust, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who I wouldn't say are actually experts. And I've had a couple different people tell me my soul colors. And I know that like, so it's definitely in like anywhere from like the green to the third eye chakra. Like I've had a range of like, so I had one client where she told me it was green and blue. So throat chakra blue and then green. More recently, when I was in New York, this woman that was on the same TV show that I was on, she reads auras and then, I photographed them. And it was interesting because aside from her telling the TV host her aura, and then when they revealed the photo I took, it was the same. Afterwards, I, met her and I asked her, hey, like, what are you seeing with me? And she told me she saw like purple, but I'm thinking she was thinking like the indigo. And then she said pink, which to me is magenta. And it was funny because I did go and get my aura photograph that day at Magic Jewelry earlier in the day. And it was very indigo and violet purple. But it was interesting because this woman reads soul colors, but she didn't specify to me that day if those were my soul, like my authentic colors or inauthentic colors. That's another way that a lot of people here in the West, at least like aura readers, sort of talk about it. But I just thought it was really funny because I guess this speaks to more of, anyone questioning if the camera is accurate, because literally what my photograph was and what she told me was exactly the same. I think it's just maybe perception of what this color actually is. So to me, it was definitely but then, this idea of like magenta is actually the secondary color of like the heart chakra. Yeah. So I think soul colors, it can come across in your aura photo, but unless you know what that is, it's hard to say because what the camera is capturing is your chakra colors, like the chakras that are activated. So when aura photographers will say like, we're taking a picture of your soul, I'm like, not really. I mean, yes, but no. You know what I mean? I think that's a little bit misleading, which I personally don't say that because it's just misleading. And I'm all about truth, which is very, blue of me.
So we're talking about all green, all red, or rainbow colors. And I'm guilty of this. When I first took my aura photo, I was so looking forward to see like rainbow, as many colors as possible, because I think that's better, And then I realized that that's not the truth. So can you tell us a little bit more about rainbow colors or more of like just one or two colors?
Yeah, so I kind of earlier, I think about every color or every chakra is just a lane or an area of focus. So if yoga or metaphysical sense, they talk about like every color is a level of consciousness, right? But I think that it's not relatable. So when you think about it as like an area of focus in life, because it is, then there's no hierarchy. Because when we're less colors, we're just more hyper-focused. When we're more colors, we're in more areas of focus. And to me, a rainbow does not signify balance. I think there's this misconception that a rainbow aura, having all your chakras open, is like a balance. True balance to me is having a mix of feminine and masculine energies in your aura. You know, because every color is either yin or yang, more so, and it just alternates. Like red is more masculine or yang, orange is more feminine or yin, you know, yellow is yang, heart chakra is yin, throat chakra then is yang, and so forth. So as long as you have a combination of or an equal amount of both, then to me that's balance. But if you don't, it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just you have to be aware, because sometimes if you're too much in like the feminine energies, you can become like passive or too lazy. When you're in too much of the masculine energies, then you could, you know, burn yourself out easily because you're, you know, just like go.
Yeah. Another way that this is what we do when we're counting the months. And then I came up with this way of just remembering what is yang and what is yang colors. It's like, for example, if this is yang, yin, yang, which would go like 红橙黄绿蓝靛紫. And then you're able to know which one is yang, which one is yang. Just something to share with the audience.
我没听过，可是
没
我喜欢。
听过吗？
对，喜欢。
Yay! Yeah, I thought that was easier for me to remember which color is like more yang, which color is more yang.
Yeah.
Another question that they want to ask is, do the positions of the colors in the photo matter?
Oh, like the map. Yes and no. So I think it's important to understand like what's coming and what's going, but I don't think you should be obsessed with it. You know, I think what is more important, like I said, is like the combination, because I will see people say like, oh, well, there's yellow on this side, but it's not on the other side. That means I'm not balanced. And it's more in that sense where I think it doesn't matter when people are obsessed with the idea of that being balanced. But it does matter in the sense of when you're understanding something, if you're trying to manifest and bring something new into your life, and that shows up, you know, in your photo, I think that is important to know. Or if you recently went through something and you're done with it and you're trying to move on to the next thing, and then you see those colors leaving, I think that's also important. And it's important too, I think it's fun when you do it over periods of time and you see how the one you took previously, those colors are leaving in the new photo, and then those new colors are coming in. Because then you see, oh, that is how energy moves. Because also then to go back to, you know, Chinese medicine, the left side of the body, 这个是 yin 和这个是 yang. So energy that goes like that, you know?
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned this because this was taken within like a minute. It's literally what you were talking about. The left side of the energy was moving. Well, the right side, I don't know which side, but I guess people should not be too obsessed with this.
Yeah.
But I know there's like a past, now, future.
Yeah, but so it's important to know that, but you should not be obsessed with it in terms of thinking about balance. It's just important to understand what's coming and what's going, especially if you are trying to bring something new into your life, right?
Copy that.
Or if you're going through something.
Here's a question that, so some of the people have some circles on top and they're wondering what that is. They get really excited to see those like 珠珠 and they think it's so pretty. What does that mean?
Yeah. So I like to think about them as almost like intention bubbles or thought forms, like things that are within our orbit. You know, here in the West, traditionally they'll tell you
Yeah.
it's your spirit guides, and that's just not true. Because, the psychics that I have seen, and I don't know if you've gone to people, but like we traditionally have like, we have like one or two spirit guides, not like 10 of them or like 5 of them. And then that wouldn't explain like why are there sometimes different colors, right? Because sometimes I've noticed it's like half is blue and then the other half are yellow.
Yes.
So to me, it really is like literally like 讲话的那种 bubble.
Conversation bubble.
Conversation bubble. But it's like your own thoughts, or like to me it's more like your intention. So something that you are trying to manifest, or an intention like that's literally just within your orbit.
But for those people who don't have it, what does that mean? Does that mean that they don't have any?
You're just not trying to, there's no like things that you're really trying to manifest, or there's no like specific intentions maybe surrounding you right now.
Copy that.
Similar to how sometimes here there's no color, 对不对?
Right.
有时候这边跟那个心那边没有颜色。因为 that's not activated, 对不对? 所以不是 good or bad. It's just not intentionally activated.
So we can say that those thought bubbles are intentions activated?
Think about almost them as like manifestation or intention bubbles. Yeah. And the color will indicate what theme, like what area of life that you're working on, right? For some people, if it's like yellow, it's like, maybe I'm trying to let go of control. And then the second yellow one is I'm trying to, figure out like what I believe in now, or, just whatever it is.
Not last. I still have so many questions. So now we're going to talk about the height of an aura, because I realized that we're now taking photos. And for example, my best friend Emma, like we can tell right away my aura is a little bit lower and hers was a little higher.
Oh, 对。
Yeah, what does that mean?
So sometimes when it's closer to you, we're either trying to like conserve our energy when we're a little bit tired, or sometimes you're just trying to protect your energy. Like colors that are closest to us, like this is what you are literally using like right now, like your immediate focus, versus everything else, like I'm using it, but not like right now.
Got you. It's just like for example, I could say that this is like more of a right now energy. This is like a weekly energy.
Well, no, I could say it's almost like pretend like my whole aura is like your iPhone, and this blue is the app that's open right now that you're using.
Oh, I love that. Interesting. Why do you think this is something everyone can benefit from experiencing at least once in their lifetime?
I think what I love about aura photography the most is that it shows you things that you kind of already know about yourself, right? I think a lot of us are working on, certain areas of our life or things within ourselves. And this photo really gives you a visual affirmation. And especially with conversations with clients, that is, I think, what makes them kind of emotional sometimes when you start talking about their aura. Because, sometimes, for example, magenta comes up, that pink, right? And we talk about they are somebody who is a people pleaser. They're so used to like doing things for everybody else. And they're finally in a place where they're starting to focus on them and not care what people think and just do things for fun. And oh, this feels good, so I'm going to go do that. And then we see that color show up for them. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not just thinking I'm doing this for myself, but now I have like a visual, physical evidence that is showing me that like this is actually happening in my life.
Right. I love that. What is something that they can do after they get their aura photo?
I think number one is journal. I think it's really good to write down kind of your own thoughts about what's happening, because especially if you do it again, then what's interesting is, especially if it does change over time, you'll start noticing patterns, right? Maybe a certain color was happening during a specific thing that was going on in your life. And then if you find yourself in that color again, and then to see like, does this match? Like it's this idea, I think, it's just about self-awareness. I think it'll help you move through your life better with ease, or at least understand yourself better. And maybe if there are certain things you need to work on, this then is a way to sort of track that.
This is what I love about our information card, because I'm so grateful to have you in this business, which we didn't even have the chance to talk about. You're the driver of this business, because I think without you, we probably wouldn't start it this fast. It was almost like the universe just was like, here you go do it. Because I've been thinking about this for 3 years. And then I messaged you and I thought I had so much balls. I was like, you already are out of appointments. And then I was like, I thought I would try my luck. And then I messaged you and I was like, hey, Eileen. Oh, I didn't even say Eileen. I was like, hi, this is who I am. And then would love to experience your aura photography in San Francisco. And I got so lucky. I'm so grateful that we're both Taiwanese. And then you took us in. I think you just got done like a Google or like a big event too.
Maybe. I just remember you emailed me and you were just talking about how you were in San Francisco very briefly, visiting from Taiwan. And then immediately I was like, oh, this girl's from Taiwan. That's cool. Sure, that would be fun. What are the chances? And then, you talked about you were thinking about getting this camera. And I immediately was like, oh my gosh, somebody wants to bring it to Taiwan. Like, how cool. And then I think it wasn't even until later we decided that it would be a good idea to work together. I don't even remember how that came about, but I mean, I believe it's the universe, but also I believe, I think our ancestors are like behind the scenes being like, okay, we have to bring them together to make this happen. Because I don't know if you saw in my book, I literally have it dedicated to, it says, for my ancestors and my grandmother whose spirit is always guiding me through my aura.
Wow.
And I mean, we've talked about how, I'm not like religious, but I'm spiritual in this sense because of my family in Taiwan and sort of having temple ties and all of that. So yeah, I think it was meant to be.
Yeah, so
and I'm very grateful too.
Oh, good. You're like one of our biggest manifestation this year. We're both so grateful to have you.
I'm so grateful that you're bringing this to our home country. And I think, I shared with you last year, I just re-got my citizenship. So now I'm a dual citizen. And I think this just gives me, more reason to spend more time in Taiwan, in the future too.
Yes.
So
I just think it's crazy that it's all kind of happening at the same time.
Yeah.
It's
I know.
Taiwan is calling you back in a way. Come back, Eileen Lee.
I know. I'm excited for, there's things that we've talked about that everyone doesn't know about yet that we're going to introduce.
They're going to go crazy over it. The very last question is a curious question. Has there been any client moment that has really stayed with you or surprised you?
Gosh, there's been so many people over the years. Not anything that surprises me, but I think what is interesting is these appointments sometimes for a lot of people almost feel like therapy, at least here in the States. I think it's interesting too for the people that do go to therapy, what they talk about with their therapist then almost is mirrored in our sessions or appointments. And I always think it's interesting because they'll say like, oh, this is something I've been talking about with my therapist. And I'm like, well, then you should really show your therapist this photo and saying like what you've been working on in therapy is literally showing up in this image through the colors. So I think in the beginning it was surprising, but now to me, I'm just so used to it. But I always, it really warms my heart. And I think it's something that's very lovely to come across in, appointments with clients.
Yeah. Wow. That's wild. I'm so grateful that you have been doing this for so long and have so much knowledge and share so much wisdom with us today. Is there something that you wanted to add before we finish this episode? Is there an advice or something that you wanted to share? One last thing.
There's no good or bad aura colors. It's just going to show you what is. We are the ones who give meaning to what's good and what's bad. I think it really is just understanding that these colors are here to be of resource and to support you, right? And we are the ones who are, determining, are we using this color right now, or is it here because we need to start using it?
Oh, well, thank you so much, Eileen, for coming to the show and sharing so much information with us. I know that they can definitely benefit from this episode and have a more understanding of what this is and what they can benefit from doing it. So thank you so much. I know you have been so busy.
You're so welcome. I'm so happy to do it. I'm just so excited that it's in Taiwan. And now we're going to see all these Taiwanese auras. It's going to be so cool.
We're going to have a wall and we can't wait for you to come back.
I know. We have to figure out when. Soon. Yes.
Yes, very soon. 真的很感谢今天收听的大家，希望这一集内容有让你更加的了解到底什么是光环摄影体验，以及背后的原理，还有要怎么样运用自己的光环 photo 来更加的了解自己，然后帮助自己有更多的觉察，以及对自己的欣赏和喜爱。如果这一集有带给你满满的能量的话，记得在你的收听平台留下5颗星，以及你的提问，我们在未来有可能会回答到你的问题。也别忘了订阅无限力的 podcast 跟 YouTube 频道。I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.